Welcome to episode 30. Check out what we have in store for you this week.
I was excited. It popped into my head. I got really pumped. I was like, this one might actually work.
I literally had the word elegant in mind.
Like, that on-ramp's pretty obvious when it's there. Like, you're like, oh, I need to get on this ramp, okay? Like, and you feel the pain of it sometimes if you're like me and you were going too fast. And
there's a fire in my kitchen. How do I put it out? I have a fire extinguisher down the block. Like, that to me is this idea, right? Like,
no, it's more like this. There's a fire in my kitchen. There's a fire extinguisher, but there's an instruction booklet I wrote upstairs on how to use the fire extinguisher.
Welcome back to another episode of the High Tech Podcast. Josh and I are here this week. We showed up.
I'm here.
It's a little rougher for both of us today. I think we're a little tired.
Yeah,
feeling behind the eight ball.
It's one of those days,
but we made it.
We did. Yeah, may have crawled through flames, but we're here.
Okay, there's no Balrogs keeping us from the podcast, my friend.
Speak for yourself, okay? I got some Balrogs around me at the moment.
We are just having a good time of things. This is going to be episode 30. I am just amazed. Been having a lot of fun with this.
We've done 30 episodes.
That's what this is.
Wow.
Episode 30.
That's crazy.
And we are back with episode 30 specifically to do part 2 of the How to Make the Technology Disappear episode. So we did a little series perch.
Answer is do a podcast. Yeah.
Wait a second.
Surprise.
What?
It's all going to be... Yeah, that's the answer. Do 30 episodes of a podcast and you'll make technology disappear.
As always, not really always, because we only do it some episodes and we're not even very good at doing this, but we would like you to follow us on Twitter, HighTechPod at Twitter. That's great. You can always go to our website, hightechpodcast.us, to find our episodes and information. Connect with us, share us, get this podcast out there for more folks to use. We have fun with this, of course, but we want to make sure that people are getting the chance to benefit from the conversations. Yeah. Maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, or talk to us, we're not scary people. We're here. You may listen to us. But we're fun on Twitter too. And by we, I mean Will's fun on Twitter. I am good at retweeting.
Yes,
that's
hey
my
Josh,
role.
I made the post. Okay. Retweet.
Cool. Retweet. That's basically what happens.
It's perfect.
Anyway, find us on Twitter though. It'd be great. And our website. And shoot us some questions that we can start episodes with.
Yep.
Those are always fun. Yeah, because we always start with a fun question of the day before we go into anything else. And speaking of that, I think we have a question, right, today from one of our listeners. No, we're lying. That's not from one of our listeners. We made it up because that's why you need to send more questions.
Josh is technically a listener. He listens to my half of the conversation.
That's true. I've listened. It does. I listen to our episodes sometimes just to see how stupid we sound and see what else we can do.
Well, if you got any feedback, you can send it my way,
Yeah, I know. Well, don't worry. I'll send it. I don't have any feedback right now. We're great.
Great.
So now, anyway, question of the day today that is so related to technology, and the question that everybody's been wondering: Will, if any animal should know martial arts, what is that animal?
Pandas, hands down, all day, every day. Pandas, Kung Fu Panda 1, 2, and 3 are masterpieces. They're modern marvels of magic and mystery.
All 3 of them, huh?
All 3.
They're all 3? Okay. Yeah, for those of you who have not picked that up, Will is a massive Kung Fu Panda fan.
Now, it's not just like that movie, but I do think like it's a great animal. So if it knew martial arts, it just seems like it'd be all the better. The only thing better than a black panda, though, would be the red pandas. Like a red panda, which is in Kung Fu Panda as well. But if the red panda knew martial arts, there you go. That's pretty much the next thing closest to Yoda.
Closest to Yoda?
Red pandas are adorable and small and feisty.
Could you imagine how different Star Wars would be if it was a red panda that was like the Yoda?
It could be. I mean, it'd pretty much be Rocket Raccoon with less guns.
I mean, I guess. Yeah, essentially. Well, I've been thinking about this. I didn't necessarily have like an answer when I asked the question, and you answered, and I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. So I was like, but something just popped into my head.
Okay.
How hilarious would it be if a sloth knew Kung Fu?
Oh, yeah. That's perfect.
Like, I feel like...
It'd have to be Tai Chi,
There needs to be, like, a Kung Fu sloth, okay? I'm just tossing it out there.
I'm just wondering now why that's not even in Kung Fu Panda as it is. Like, they do all the animals, and they have so much fun in Kung Fu Panda.
Why is there no sloth?
That sounds like the perfect joke, the perfect gag for Kung Fu Panda.
Well, I would imagine it like, Jackie Chan does like drunken monkey style.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, I want a drunken sloth style. That's all I want. Like a slow but like intentional kung fu.
Yeah.
That just
He
is
might get hit like 6
unexpectedly
times
great.
before he puts out a punch, but as soon as he does,
Yes,
it'll,
but
like,
his punch
level
is
you.
so hard that you die immediately. That's what I want.
One Punch Man. Wow, that's
One punch
I like
man,
that.
exactly. One punch sloth. One punch sloth. I'm just saying. I don't know who made Kung Fu Panda. Was it like DreamWorks or
DreamWorks.
something? Okay, DreamWorks. If you're listening, hashtag first of all not a sponsor. Secondly, next in Kung Fu Panda 4, don't pretend like you're not making it because we know you are. Okay, in Kung Fu Panda 4, I want One Punch Sloth. Okay, and that is just a simple One Punch Man type Kung Fu sloth.
Yep.
Okay, I'm asking for it right
You
now.
can literally be introduced at the beginning of the movie, like following the troop off to success, and show up at
Yeah.
the end of the movie to punch the bad guy once.
Exactly.
Like,
that would
could
actually be
it.
a great
That would
storyline.
be
Yeah, he walks out with them in the beginning, gets lost, and doesn't show up until right at the end and punches the guy and knocks him out.
Perfect.
That's
Frankly,
all I
we
want.
should write
That's
the
what I
movie
want.
ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it'd be great. So listeners, petition DreamWorks One Punch Sloth.
Hey, that's how Simu Liu became
you got.
Shang-Chi, right? You get on Twitter and you just
It's true.
petition. So let's get this done.
For those who know nothing about Marvel, they were like, "What did he just say?"
Simu Liu is the main character, Shang-Chi, in Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, and he posted 3 years before the movie came out, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
Marvel, hit me up for a character," and he ended up as Shang-Chi. It's pretty amazing.
It was a great movie. You should go see it. Hashtag not a sponsor, but we are fans.
All the same.
Marvel, if you want a sponsor, though,
I
know
could
where we're
become the
Just,
marvelous
like, I
high-tech
would be fine.
podcast. No problems here.
yeah, I don't know how that's going to change our podcast, but we'll do whatever we need to.
Just let Kevin Feige shake my hand and I'll do
we
it.
we will sell our souls. Anyway, so next to the real stuff we're here to talk about, not Marvel, not sloths, but education.
Closely related.
Specifically, technology and education.
Wow.
It's kind of like a sloth.
Ironically, how to make technology and education disappear. So, following up on part 1 of the episode, if you weren't tuning in last week, quote unquote, we started this episode, the start of this series of episodes, the first 2 here, off of something that Steve Muth said to us in his interview about VoiceThread. He said he likes, when...
And yes, we did just reference 2 episodes that you should go watch. Should go watch them. Or watch them. Go listen to them if you have not already.
He likes when you can make the technology disappear for pedagogical purposes, right? Like when you can get the students so involved and when it's so easy to use, when it's just like a pencil. You can pick up a pencil and just start using it to write. You can make a pencil a part of any learning activity you need to, once someone's learned how to use it, of course, that it disappears. You don't even think about the pencil as a tool, even though the pencil itself is a very powerful tool. So this week we are digging into some of the practical side. Last week was some heady, theoretical,
A little philosophical,
Right.
maybe a little angsty.
I didn't have my skinny jeans on. Like, what are you saying it's angsty for?
No, I'm like, is that an angsty thing? Skinny jeans?
it's
If
just-
it is, I got a
it's just-
problem. I guess I'm always angsty.
Well,
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of, anyway. No, I mean, like, yeah, I think last episode we talked about, I think, kind of getting into like, okay, to make technology disappear, it's a nice little term to be using. But in the end of the day, even as a teacher, to make technology disappear is mainly for your students. So sometimes you've got to focus on the technology to help it disappear for your students. And the people designing stuff like Steve Muth, their job is to try to help you do that and then in a way make it disappear for you in certain circumstances. But you also have to be intentional with it. It's not just like we can take this tool, throw it in, and it's just going to vanish.
Yeah.
Where technology does not disappear is where we're not intentional with how we use it. So I think that's where we kind of broke down the philosophical part of that last week, right? So we want to talk a little bit this week, I think, about like the practical. Okay, like,
what do you do?
Come out of that episode, if you're still listening to us because I didn't offend you last time.
He'll try
you're
harder
like,
this week.
I'll try harder this week. But you're like, okay, Josh and Will, he gave me all these heady thoughts, but what do I got to do? I got to like actually do something this week. Like, you know what? That's great. We hear you, and we're going to make an episode about it. So let's talk about it.
I think
Now, I think
You think. You're thinking. Go and do it.
You want to let me? You want me think?
Yeah.
Okay. Something helpful, Will, you mentioned before we jump into this that I think will help us kind of start this conversation is I think it's helpful to think about this in kind of like, okay, what do I do when I deploy technology? Okay, so like that sounds really fancy, and I kind of makes me feel like I'm falling out of a helicopter or something. I guess
Deploy.
But, at the end of the day, you've picked something, you like this tool, you want to use it. What do you do to actually get it into your course or into class or whatever that may be? What are some of the things to think through? And I think that's kind of what should drive our conversation. So I'll let you take it, Will, because I'm just so great with words today.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I'll just start speaking gibberish if you lead me off that way. One of the things that comes to mind, of course, when you start trying to think of here's the best way to do that, is of course some of the bad ways that it has been done, right? So if we think of, an online course, for instance, you tell your students, hey, we're going to use Netflix to do a documentary and then do blah, 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 blah. Like, if that's the instruction for this assignment, we will use Netflix to watch this so that we can have a discussion or a paper or whatever on the other side. Just saying that is not going to get anybody there, right? A, Netflix has to be paid for. B, you have to make your own account. C, are they going to get to the right documentary? Like, or even if you remove the Netflix and the paid version, you just say, go to YouTube and find a video and da-da-da-da-da. Like, we know that if we want to make that as effective and as simple as possible for the students, we have to go to YouTube. We have to get the share link. We have to put the link in there. There should be some level of like a numbered list or bullet list. Like in this assignment, you're going to read pages, blah, blah, blah. Then you're going to watch this video. Then you are going to return to the discussion board and do something, right? 1, 2, 3. Simple instructions like that make it all the easier for anything. However, when it comes to this make technology disappear thing, we're saying if you've got Nearpod, if you've got VoiceThread, if you've got Coggle, there's some level of that introduction that doesn't even need to be just like, here's the Coggle link or here's the VoiceThread link or here, there needs to be some prep before that. Here's what VoiceThread looks like and here's where the comment button is. Here's what Coggle looks like, and here's how to make sure you add your own branches. Here's what, Nearpod looks like and how you're going to interact in a quiz. I know when I've deployed technologies for faculty in the past, like I've even gone into classes and spent maybe the first 5 or 10 minutes visually showing it on screen so people have a sense of what that looks like. And so in the physical classroom, that's, I think, almost easier to do. I go in the classroom, I screen share, or I tell all the students to download the app or whatever, right? There's some instruction and, if you will, hand-holding to get the folks familiar with what the platform is going to look like so they know what to expect when you say in week 3, go into VoiceThread and make your own VoiceThread or comment on my video lecture. If not for the physical space where you can show them, then you need some level of training. You have to create resources. It doesn't have to be, a 5-hour training video, right? It can be a 30-second clip or a couple of GIFs, right? But there needs to be something that shows the students exactly how you expect them to interact with the platform, because I love VoiceThread. I think Steve's got a great mission there. I think Steve's on track with what he's told us in the interview and what he wants to accomplish. But I've still found students who struggle with creating their own VoiceThread. And it's not his fault, it's not the platform's fault, but there's reasons behind that. If you've used VoiceThread to only do comments and then you tell the students to make their own, that's not the same thing. And so it's like telling a student, pick up this pencil and write your name. Okay, great. I got that. Now pick up this paintbrush and write your name. Well, it's similar. But paint and lead are not going to need the same pressure. They're not going to look the same in the end result. Paint is going to trickle. There's just differences. It's going to be very similar, but it's significant enough that sometimes you just need to have a little video in there. Or, if we're talking about remote instructions time, like there's still institutions in remote instruction here in 2021. Get on Zoom and screen share it with the students. Show them how you expect them to do it, so they got that sense of things before they do it for a grade. Create the training, create the resources, but make sure it's also separate from a grade for the first time they do it.
Yeah. And I think there's a kind of like a happy medium you need to find in here where like, because to some of this, it's like, it seems counterintuitive. Okay. I want to make the technology disappear. In other words, and what we mean by that, we talked about this last week, is like, really what we're trying to say there is we don't want the technology to become a hurdle for what the student's trying to do. The learning experience is the most important thing that you're trying to create for them. And the tool is supposed to be an aid in that or help do it in a way that they couldn't do it before. Right. So, but the reason you need some of these resources is like, we use this concept of like an onboard ramp for a lot of different things. But like, I think this metaphor fits really well because essentially you think about you're getting onto a highway, like an on-ramp. Like that on-ramp's pretty obvious when it's there. Like you're like, oh, I need to get on this ramp. Okay. Like and you feel the pain of it sometimes if you're like me and you were going too fast and you jump onto that ramp. But eventually you get on the highway and you just keep going, right? Like it's just, It makes sense. And I think that's how we have to look at how we deploy technology into courses. Like whether it's an online course or a face-to-face course or over Zoom or whatever that may be, in the beginning, you're going to have to handhold a little bit more. And maybe that's you specifically, and online, what I'll try to get people to do is actually like design a initial activity that is kind of low stakes that helps them get used to the tool they're going to use. Right. So, and then that's where you place the resources, but then you shouldn't need to place those in every single activity through the course. Like you place those resources there, and then you point back to that activity with the resources as you're going through the course, and you kind of pull the training wheels off as they start to actually build up to the activity. But the goal is that, again, we joke about this, but if I had $1 for everybody who doesn't seem to get it, like when we're doing some type of online course or even blended specifically, I'll kind of focus on these areas, or even we'll focus on all of them. This is why we do some of this scaffolding and things with activities, because it gives you the ability to onboard them onto technology as well, to say like, okay, here's a low stakes kind of thing, how we do this. You're going to practice doing this, maybe create a draft, whatever that may be. So then come the actual project, the technology is not a thing that they're worried about anymore. And actually it just kind of becomes part of what they're doing. And so that's kind of the goal. And I think you have to do it intentionally. And however that may look, like our team creates actual resources because we can do that. But if you're just an instructor, like Will said, some of that might literally just be like doing a video real quick to show them how you did it, or walking through it with them in class. The other piece of this that I think is important is not just the onboarding and the training, but it's actually the way you do instructions or you design the activity. This, again, go to bad examples. Like we've got the instructors who are like, we're going to use this tool. They say one word about the tool, like maybe it's VoiceThread. They're like, okay, use VoiceThread to do this. Nothing else. No anything else about instructions. No guidance on what they want the VoiceThread to look like. And sometimes you can leave the door open. Like if you don't genuinely care about what your student's VoiceThread looks like or graphic that they're creating looks like, you want them to have freedom to kind of mess around, that's fine. Let them know that.
Yeah, be explicit.
But if you have an intention of what you want it to look like just be clear with instructions and just don't make them convoluted. Like I've had everybody from insane instructions that are like paragraphs upon paragraphs long and full documents to 4 words. Like it needs to be a happy medium between there.
4 paragraphs to 4 words.
4 paragraphs, yeah. And it's also about being clear about your expectations with the tool. Like it's not just enough to train them well on the tool. It's like you need to be clear about how you want them to use that.
Yeah.
So like a Coggle is really easy. We talked about Coggle before. It's pretty clear. You're making a mind map. But Coggle's pretty simple. You don't do a lot of onboarding for it. Coggle just kind of works.
The end product makes sense. The steps in the middle make sense.
Yeah.
You just need to get them on the right road. You need to get them on the on-ramp.
But Canva, there's like a trillion options you can do in Canva for graphic design type
and always
stuff.
getting more complicated. Like they keep
it's always getting more complicated. Yeah. And so if you want them to create a certain type of thing, give some examples, give some stuff that they can lean into. But I think that's kind of the biggest pieces. It's just like, it seems counterintuitive to bring attention to the technology sometimes.
Yeah.
But when the reality of putting technology in the background is not about just like forgetting about it.
Right.
That's not what it's about. It's about that the technology doesn't become a distraction. And the way it doesn't become a distraction is making sure people know how to use it and use it well. And for your students, they need to be brought into that.
You nailed
certain
it.
Expectations you can set.
I mean, and one of the things I think is a little is so very helpful about the pencil metaphor that Steve referenced and we're using a little bit here. But one of the things that's so valuable about that is like, you know how to, and a pencil's technology disappears to you today. You know how to use it today. It didn't when you were a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or kindergarten or whatever, right? Like first graders struggle to use pencils to write their name and to write in class. And that's okay, right? But by the time you're an adult, you don't think about it. Well, that's a lot of time. It's years worth of time where you're seeing that experience change for someone who cannot use a pencil, a baby, a child, an infant, to an adult who doesn't think twice about using a pencil. Now imagine you're taking something 100 times, sometimes 1,000 times more complicated than a pencil, and telling the students they need to be able to professionally use it by the first day of class. Like that to me is like, okay, we have a tool. It's going to require some skill. They need time to practice it if you want them to become adept at using it. And then you, besides just that on-ramp time frame, everybody has different proficiency. I really do know people who are just not great with technology. I know I've met people who cannot conceptually understand how a mouse moves across a screen. Right? It makes sense to me. It's that the mouse is the next closest thing to a pencil for me, and yet that's something we all kind of have to not take for granted when we're dealing with our students. And I think a helpful consideration here is when you're trying to determine how to train your students or how to write the instructions for your students, think about what it would be like for them to be a kindergartner learning to write their name or learning to use a pencil, right? Like get as simple as you possibly can so that you can try and account for as much of that issue or discrepancies there's going to be. Like I always think that I probably lean towards like more information than is necessary. I think Josh helpfully tries to remind us like keep it simple, stupid. But there's got to be some you have to at least reflect on that difficulty, because if you understand how difficult it is, that's going to help you be more concise. And isn't this, quick soapbox tangent, isn't this what we tell our students about every paper we've ever wanted them to write for us? I want you to get so good at this information and understand I want you to keep it as concise as possible. I don't need a 15-page paper, when you can say it in 4 paragraphs, theoretically. But the idea, right, is there that we want to get this to be as simple as possible, because this is something that Josh and I have felt pain on time and time again. If the instructions aren't right the first time, IT or somebody gets the call and the ticket. You do too. You as the faculty are going to get the email. I don't understand step 3. I don't see the same thing in this screenshot. I can't, it's going to happen. So try and keep it as simple as possible so you can reduce those issues. And frankly, on the other side, if things do change, like platforms change, if you keep it simpler, it's easier to fix on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. And again, some of the stuff that you guys may not need to worry about if you're not in the spaces Will and I are in. But the last piece I want to talk about is, let's get real specific here. And I want to talk about how you deal with your LMS or your learning management system. Okay, so most likely if you're teaching in some capacity, you have some kind of LMS. It might be really simple. They might not call it an LMS. It might be like Canvas and not simple. It could be like Schoology and partially on fire. Whatever.
Dumpster fire.
Whatever you're using.
Hashtag not a sponsor.
Okay. Hashtag not a sponsor. And I love you guys. Sort of. Anyway, for LMS, what do you do with the LMS? Because this is another part of it, right? This is the digital environment. Whether you're doing an online course where they're using it a lot, or you're teaching a face-to-face class in some sort of fashion, and you're using it in an auxiliary fashion, how do you make the technology disappear on that end? Because I know that this kind of becomes a hurdle for students sometimes, especially in online, where they go, what they do, blended, anything. And my advice is just kind of simple, I guess is how I would put this. Just organize things in the way your students think. Okay. This is like the easiest base value thing I can put, I have a lot of instructors who put themselves first when they set up their courses in the LMS. So like good example, this would be like the amount of my professors who are like, all my PowerPoints are going into this section, and all my videos are going to go into this section, and all of this is going to go into this section. It's like, well, I'm sorry, did your students, do they interact with all your videos at the same time? Oh no, they interact with them week by week. Okay. So organize stuff into the activities that they do. So like if you're going to create an assignment where a student needs to watch this video, Will was kind of referencing this, or use this tool, don't link them in different places in your LMS. Any of your modern learning management system has a text box that you can write stuff in and link to things in. Everything they need should be in that activity.
Yep.
And I have a lot of instructors who are in that space of like they're teaching face-to-face classes, and they will give pushback because they'll be like, it's in my syllabus. Cool. There's no links or things in there. Like while it's in the syllabus.
I just have a quick thought on that syllabus point thing, and I think it's really, it's like, there's a fire in my kitchen. How do I put it out? I have a fire extinguisher down the block. Like that to me is this idea, right? Like,
no, it's more like this. There's a fire in my kitchen. There's a fire extinguisher, but there's an instruction booklet I wrote upstairs on how to use the fire extinguisher.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you right now. Pull the pin, point at the thing, and put it. You can go upstairs and pick on my manual, and that'll tell you how to use the fire extinguisher.
Yeah, that'll show you. No, they put the instructions on the fire extinguisher. Like this is. And the reality of this is where I think it's tough for people to get sometimes, is that I get it. Like when you're in a more face-to-face class, you're mainly using, a lot of people mainly use learning management systems they'll have some online content, but they're mostly doing grading and stuff like that through there. They're not doing a lot of crazy stuff. Although I will say that's changing. You're starting to see more and more as things have changed. People more blending their content online and face-to-face kind of coming together. Anyway, the whole point of this is that when they go to your assignment or they go to your activity or they go to your page, they are going there and they're going to work off of what's there. And if you link to a syllabus and basically just say scroll down through this page, sure, they'll find it. But the technology's no longer hidden, okay? They have to now click into different things. They got to have multiple tabs open. They've got to just put it all in that spot. I know you have your syllabus. But we've talked about this a bunch of times in different places. The LMS is basically a deconstructed version of your syllabus. Yeah. And it's no law. Back in the day, it used to be okay to just read through this document and they would work on stuff. But we are now in more of a digital rich environment. And so people are used to now working in these web pages. And this has become the new text of the day, whether we like it or not. And so this is where we need to put things. Include videos, include them. Just put them into the singular spot so your student doesn't need to worry about, where do I need to go to find this information? It's all there on the activity, and they can just have that open as they're working through what they need to do and focus on learning and not on trying to find all the components of information they need.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think I've met faculty who have the attitude at some level that are like, they need to figure it out for themselves, or I'm not going to handhold, or they should be capable of this. But at the end of the day, without addressing that attitude, but at the end of the day, to me, that's not the goal of your class. The goal of your class is for them to learn what your subject matter is. Anything that you put in the way of them learning the subject matter is not their fault for not doing well, right?
And it holds them back. If you really want them to learn, all you're doing is making it harder. Like, and I'm gonna get a little snippy tonight because that's the mood I'm in. The amount of people that I hear say that it's hand holding, I'm gonna reverse this, right? If I was teaching you how to do something like technology wise, and I gave you 4 different documents that explained how to do it in different places, you know what would happen?
You wouldn't do it.
I would be complained to about that they're all in different sections. Okay, so if you have problems learning things in this manner, your students will too. And I just don't think it's acceptable anymore to basically say like that's hand-holding. No, it's not hand-holding. It's creating a good experience that fosters good learning for your student. And that's what we're supposed to be about.
And it takes hard work. It's not easy. I think it's something that takes time to practice. Josh and I have both worked in more than one LMS. I've probably worked in 5 or 6 at this point. Like, it's really not easy to get familiar with them, especially if your institution changes them. That's really tough year to year when an LMS changes, because it feel like you just are trying to get in the whole new system and everything's different and it's all in different places. I get it. I had a master's degree class in a design degree, right? My learning design degree that actually did this to me. It had instructions for the final exam final project in 4 different locations, and each of the sets of the instructions were slightly different. That's not exactly the same issue as what we're outlining here today, but that was
Oh no, it totally is.
a huge irony to me, right? That the LMS, something that should make my learning easier, should make my design, should be an effective execution of design, was like a flat tire. I mean, I really didn't know what to do with that final exam, and so I still had to take all of those instructions, try and synthesize them, and send them to the faculty member and say, like, is this real? Like, what I have synthesized to be the final project out of these 4 different sets of instructions, is this what you actually want? And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm not the original teacher of this course. Yes. And that stuff happens. But besides our soapboxing, the idea here is when we do this well, when lesson 1 is really well outlined and each of the activities or items within it has the instructions it needs situated within the actual assignment, that is an example in the LMS context where the technology begins to disappear. That means the student goes in, they click on what's up this week, they go in, they read the narrative instruction of like content, right? Whatever's related to you, but then they read the instructions for how to complete what you want them to do. They begin doing it, they complete it, they move on to the next lesson. I mean, that's the ultimate, that's the exceptional experience we want them to have. Where the opposite might be, they go into lesson 1, they read some narrative content, they see some instructions, that sends them over to your syllabus. They come back from their syllabus to this, they have to read the instructions again, then they go to the assignment to get some narrative content, then it goes back to the syllabus, and then it goes to the assignment. Like, if you've got that kind of ping-ponging, it really just needs to be back in there in a linear structure. Our apps are designed that way. Our work expects work of us like that these days. Even a process for your mechanic. A mechanic has to follow a certain sequence, a linear sequence to do an oil change, right? That's normal, and it's good, and it's functional for folks. So the more we can be doing that, I think the better experience we're going to have long term too, because it's going to be done. It's going to reduce barrier for our students, making it easier for them, meaning we have to bear less burden of answering questions, sending them to IT, getting IT involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. You could say, Will, when you do this, you create a more elegant learning experience, And Will, do you know what you wear at elegant type of things?
No, Josh. What do you wear when you steal the transition I literally had in my head?
What's that? You wear top hats sometimes. I like to wear top hats.
I would love to see that.
Elegant
I'm
events,
going to bring my top hat over to your house next time we're hanging out.
I literally don't own a top hat, so
do.
I am a liar.
I do.
Okay, well, I need one now.
That's amazing.
Remind me, I have a top hat story. It's not for now, but I have a top hat story.
Golf clap.
So, but it's a coincidence because we also have an app today that goes by the same name. That's called Top Hat, right? We're discussing a little Top Hat tool.
That it is.
And I'm saying right because Will's mainly the one with the experience with it. So this is about where my experience stops.
He wanted the transition so he could pass the baton.
Pass the baton a little bit.
Well done.
I was just excited that I had a transition. I was excited. It popped into my head. I got really pumped. I was like, this one might actually work.
I literally had the word elegant in mind. I was also like
really?
Looking at the time and being like, yeah, it's time to do the transition. Like well done. 10 out of 10.
I'm so
you
happy.
Nailed the landing.
That's cool. Go high tech.
All right, folks, get your suit on, get your monocle out, throw on your top hat. We're going down.
Get some peanuts.
We're going to go hang out with Mr. Peanut. Top Hat is a audience response system. It's much like Poll Everywhere, Nearpod, some of these tools that are trying to say, like, hey, I want the students in the class, Clicker's the prototypical tool, right? I want the students in class to respond to things that I'm doing while I'm live, while I'm teaching. Top Hat is a bit different than Nearpod, right? We've done an episode on Nearpod. I've used that a lot. I like that one. I also used Top Hat while I was at my last institution, and I think it was a really great product. I mean, the functionality and the goal behind this tool are really awesome. Short and sweet here, right? You can upload your PowerPoint slides into it. You can intersperse quizzes, polls, discussions. You can annotate. You can like write on your slides, etc. Right? It's an interactive experience that when your students log into your session, right? So they're in your class or they're on your Zoom class. They want to follow along as you teach. You give them a course, code at the beginning of the semester. They join your course, and then as you teach, they watch your slides on their device. And as you move from slide to slide into interactions like quizzes, polls, etc., that shows up on their device, and they get to interact with it on their laptop, cell phone, tablet, etc. So if you've heard our Nearpod episode, honestly, I mean, it's a very comparable tool. If you're familiar with the functionality of Nearpod or some of the other ones, I don't want to make this too hard or try and describe something that's visual, but it's pretty straightforward that they watch your presentation, they stay live with you as you teach. Now, what's the big win of this tool? Why, if we love Nearpod, why would we talk about Top Hat? Honestly, a big difference between these two product lines is that Nearpod started in K-12 and doesn't have a huge content base for its users, right? Nearpod does offer a library of materials, but they're all K-12 focused. Top Hat started in higher education and actually has a full suite of low cost, or there are some more expensive, but low cost textbook options built into their platform. So I actually helped a couple of faculty members adopt like a Psych 101 kind of course, and they got to take not only the textbook into the course, but it came with prepared questions. It came with prepared PowerPoints. It came with, like a full suite that you could teach from in your course. So in one sense, if you like the aesthetic of Nearpod better than Top Hat or whatever, if any of the competitors, try them out, no problem there. But if you're looking for this kind of integrated teaching experience where you'd have the entire classroom in your course with the textbook, with your lectures, with your notes, you can do your exams in here. It has what's it called, where it's got like a lockdown browser feature, so you can give an exam and it'll lock down the browser and all of this is built into the same tool. So I find that it's really very rich and of course higher ed first. It's very focused on the higher ed market and what's happening for you as a faculty member in your classroom.
Yeah, and I do think that matters. I think that focus sometimes, there's a lot of tools in the space that start K-12 and they go a certain direction. And I don't have a lot of experience with Top Hat, but just like clicking through it and looking at it, I like kind of just the setup of the way they have things looking, and just like even like the way the questions function within the slides is really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's got a kind of a little bit more of a mature feel to it that works well for like a higher ed, which I think matters, because like a tool that we make fun of all the time, good old Kahoot, doesn't feel that way, So like that's what I kind of like about their setup so far.
Yeah, Kahoot, hashtag not a sponsor. We love you, but sorry. We don't.
Yeah. Just keep burning bridges left and right.
Top Hat as well, is really trying to push the limits on what they offer for your assessment abilities. So they've got like, some of them were still in beta when I was using it, but that might be 8 months ago at this point now too. So please do check it out. They had like chemistry formula questions, math formula questions. They have like, image hotspots, right? So you can put a picture up, put hotspots on the picture, and the students have to click on it to interact with it. And all of this, one of the things I did really appreciate about Top Hat over Nearpod is that it combined two features that, again, made it much more of like the holistic classroom experience. You could almost get rid of your LMS. It has a built-in grade book, so every item that you give the students, from watching your presentation, your live presentation or a recorded version, to every quiz question, to every poll, can have both an attendance grade, so if they do it, they just get the grade, and a correctness grade, so if they get it correct, they also get grade, right? You can have one or the other or both. And so all those grades filter into a Top Hat grade book, and you can actually put in custom columns and stuff. Like you could keep your entire class grade book inside of Top Hat. Beside that, though, you can also get them to, when joining your classroom, quickly literally hit a button and say take attendance, and they all have to click on their end to say I'm here, which is I think something a lot of folks look forward to when it comes to an attendance thing. Like they don't want to make it hard to pass the paper around. They don't want to do a Google form that they have to manage. Like there's a lot of things that go wrong with attendance tools. This is easy. If they're in your classroom, you hit the button. Are you here? They reply yes. You move on. Like you have the report afterwards. It's baked in. So that's Top Hat's big win. It's a huge learning platform, frankly. It's only going to get better, and over time, I think that their product line, as they get more textbooks and more publishers involved with them, will make it all the more valuable in the higher ed market. How can you start today? It is a freemium product. It's a little limited, which is all right. Anybody who's doing freemium always wants you to buy up, so that's not the end of the world. But for free, you can do your slide presentations, you can do the automatic attendance, you can do discussions and polling questions. You get very limited reporting. It's just a lot more reporting. There is some basic support for free, which is great, like actually live chat support and stuff. But if you want to use the quizzes, if you want to do like comprehensive reports and gradebook stuff, if you want to integrate with your LMS, that's where you're going to have to pay up. So if you're just using this in your class, you want to test it out, you could do that for an entire semester for free, no problem. If you want more of those features or that robust LMS integration, that's where you're going to need either to pay up or get like a site license with your institution.
Yeah, and the point here, I think, with these tools, we can't always find all perfectly free tools, but I think Top Hat gives you enough freedom to like explore this a little bit in use, and see if this is something you want to keep using.
Right. Right.
Because again, they provide a very good tool. I mean, it's a very like the response combination with presentation. I'm always a fan of tools that are doing this, especially because it just creates kind of a very interactive feel in an actual classroom, especially. But this stuff is great for like if you're doing like Zoom sessions or stuff like that with students as well. You can easily utilize this to achieve that as well. Yeah,
it really, it's something that the pandemic made very clear folks needed for virtual instruction, but I've always liked this stuff better for even face-to-face classroom, because asking the most important question of the day and one hand goes up, like, was it really the most important question, right? But if you put that same question into Nearpod, into Top Hat, into Poll Everywhere, and the students all reply, you have so much more material. You could then start asking students to like further, explain themselves or ask their peers what they think. Like, there's so much more opportunity when you use these virtual tools for that context.
Yeah, again, Top Hat's another tool that would fit in a category that we would say, like when we've talked in past episodes about formative assessment, that there's a lot of options in here to do some cool in-class formative assessment techniques with the presentation you're creating, the content you're creating, and just even like doing tests. Like Top Hats has some cool like interface stuff that when you're doing that, like if you go through, it literally has like I tested it as a little green bubble that pops up that says questions like open basically, and your students can start responding. And then you as the instructor, when you hit next, will come up a little bubble that says, questions stop, and it will bring up the amount of results that they got. They give you a join code for the students so they can just open up a device and get in and do it. So just again, kind of creates, back to our technology in the background process, that creates kind of a smooth experience for students as opposed to fumbling around while you're in your presentation to go to another tab to find the tool that you wanted to use while you're doing that. And then like trying to remember the join code and the that's where a tool like this, I mean, there's a lot of things this tool could be used for, but practically just a beginning thing, I could see Top Hat being used for something like that.
It always bugged me in classes when my faculty member would go for like a 20-minute lecture and then stop and be like, all right, everybody open your laptops now, pull up Canvas, I want you to go into a discussion. Like, what? Like, how hard of a stop in the middle of class and a left turn, like nobody had their laptops with them that day. When you use this tool and you use it in every class, your students are always ready to answer your question, and it can always happen right away. That's one of those things I love about this.
Do you know, do they have I'm just curious. Oh, they do. Yes. Perfect. They have integrated timers, so you can create timers in here too for questions, which is really cool. So like you can set up all of that stuff in here. It looks like they even have some like group options and stuff in here too, which is pretty cool. Anonymous answers, like they've got some, like I would definitely be leveraging, if I was going to jump in here, I would leverage a lot of the question options within presentations. because you can just create an experience for students where you don't have to leave and distract them with a bunch of other things. They can literally kind of seamlessly transition between this stuff. I could love to use this for like an entrance ticket. Like, throw in an entrance ticket at the beginning with a timer, have the students come in. It's automatically already open for them with some text on the presentation that says, hey, like, put this in, and literally use the instructor, pull up your remote or whatever you have, and it transitions right away to the next results. And you can use that as a discussion within the class. Like, it creates a cool kind of smooth experience, I think, for a lot of this stuff being integrated with your presentations.
You hit it, man. That's it.
With that said, though, the elegant party is over, so it's time for us to take off our top hats and wrap up this episode of the High Tech Podcast. So again, everybody, thank you for joining us for another week as we look at how we harness that technology and kick it into the background and make as good of an experience as possible for the students, whether you're in a physical, virtual, or I'm running out of options. Half physical, virtual, I don't know. Classroom in general. Just learning experiences in general. Thank you for joining us. This is all you need from me. And see ya.
See ya.